Okay, afternoon again. Welcome to part B of lecture 15. We are going to deal with freedom of expression. You'll find that in chapter 14 of your textbook under political rights and related processes or rights. Earlier on, we dealt with freedom of association, freedom of religion, and how they all fall under the concept of diversity of rights. And I said you should also relate diversity of rights to how it relates to minority rights such as sexual orientation and freedom of association, and furthermore related to the right to privacy and the right to human dignity. Okay, let's continue with the part on hate speech. In chapter 14, it deals with lots of rights, but for now, we are only concerned with the aspect on hate speech. And you'll find that on pages 544 to 549. Pages 544 to pages 549, the aspect on hate speech. And why is freedom of expression important in this aspect? First of all, we all know that the Constitution of South Africa is founded on the principles of dignity, equal worth, and freedom. And these principles, in terms of Section 1 of the Constitution, they should be given full effect too. This entails that even if you express yourself as outlined in section 16 of the Constitution, your opinion should not impair on the right to what? To equality, on the right to human dignity, and on the right to freedom. So you should not impair you with your speech the rights that are listed in what? In section 1 of the Constitution as part of the founding values of the Constitution. Hence, it is important for us to deal with the aspect on what? On hate speech. Section 16 of the Constitution, I'll read section 16:1. It says, everyone has the right to freedom of expression, which includes freedom of the press and other media, freedom to receive or impart information or ideas, freedom of artistic creativity, and academic freedom and freedom of scientific research. Subsection 2 of section 16 reads as follows. The right in subsection 1 does not extend to A. Propaganda for war, B. Incitement of imminent violence, or C. Advocates of hatred that is based on race, ethnicity, gender, or religion, and that constitutes incitement to cause harm. And our focus is going to be on section 16, subsection 2C, which is commonly referred to as the provision that it deals with what? With the hate speech. What we are going to do, we are going to look at the definition of hate speech, and we are going to look at what the codes and what the various provisions, especially PEPUDA. PEPUDA is the Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair Discrimination Act. That is PEPUDA. It says when it comes to hate speech, and I think this will be enough when we deal with freedom of expression. And this will also help you when we are dealing with the limitation of rights to know that although you have the right to express yourself in terms of section 16, your right is limited insofar as section 16(2)(c) is concerned. I'm not concerned about A and B. For now, I'm concerned about it is your expression or your ideas cannot amount to what? To hate speech. And if we gauge that against section 36 of the Constitution, it will mean that anyone who engages or who utters words or who expresses themselves in a way that infringes section 16(2)(c) has their right of freedom of expression is what is limited, and that limitation is justified insofar as section 16(2)(c) that deals with hate speech is concerned. Now, what is the definition of hate speech? Hate speech can be defined as an effort to marginalize individuals based on their membership in a group, using expression that exposes the group to hatred. Hate speech seeks to delegitimize group members in the eyes of the minority, reducing their social standing and acceptance within society. Hate speech therefore rises beyond causing distress to individual group members. It can have a societal impact. Hate speech lays the groundwork for later broader attacks on vulnerable groups that can range from discrimination to segregation to deportation to violence, and in the most extreme cases to genocide. I'm sure those of you who read the news or who are interested in international news and regional news, you will know that there was what we call the Rwanda genocide between the Tutsis and the Hutus. This was all caused by hate speech, something that started as a propaganda against one group led to millions of individuals belonging to either of the groups, the Hutus and the Tutsis, being killed, and that is the Rwanda genocide. Hate speech also impacts a protected group's ability to respond to the substantive ideas under debate, thereby placing a serious barrier to their full participation in our democracy. In other words, if there is a notion of hate speech, or there is hate speech directed to a particular group in a society, it will make that group to not want to participate in other debates, whether it has to do with how the country is run, whether it has to do with the political setting. That is why it is important that whatever words you utter or whatever opinion you express, it should not amount to hate speech. Article 20, sub-article 2 of the ICESCR, that is the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, protects against hate speech, providing that any advocacy of national, racial or religious hatred that constitutes incitement to discrimination, hostility or violence shall be prohibited by what? By law. One of the purposes of the PEPUDA, I already told you about PEPUDA, is to prevent and prohibit hate speech. Furthermore, it endeavors to facilitate the transmission to a democratic society united in its diversity. So people who propagate hate speech, they curtail the diversity of a particular nation, because those people you propagate hate against, they will not be able to enjoy the benefits and the freedoms that others are enjoying in a democratic state, and guided by the principles of equality, fairness, equity, social progress, justice, human dignity, and freedom. In particular, Section 10(1) of PEPUDA provides that no person may publish, propagate, advocate, or communicate words based on one or more of the prohibited grounds against any person that could reasonably be construed rather to demonstrate a clear intention to be hateful. Number one. B, be harmful or to incite harm, to promote or propagate hatred. In other words, Section 10 of Pepuda said you are free to express yourself, to say your opinions, but whatever words you utter, they should not be hateful to someone else or to a group of persons. They should not incite harm or to that group. They should not promote or propagate what? Hatred against a particular person or a particular group. Moreover, Section 12 of the Act reads as follows: no person may disseminate or broadcast any information, B, publish or display an advertisement or notice that could reasonably be construed or reasonably be understood to demonstrate a clear intention to unfairly discriminate against any person. I'm sure you'll know, those who watch the news, about the story of the guy who was in Greece for a holiday, and he uttered words that he was happy because there were no black people present at the beaches or at the entertainment areas where he was. And we also know the story of Penny Sparrow, the estate agent from KZN, who called the black people baboons or monkeys, and that because they always come to Durban, to the beach, to relax and so forth, and that they constitute a nuisance. We know several stories where people have uttered hateful words towards a particular group, and that has amounted to what? To hate speech. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to look at several of those cases. There are other cases. You are free to look at any other case, but like I said, you'll find this discussion, although I made the summary, from pages 544 to page 549 of the what? Of your textbook. In the case of Islamic Unit Convention versus Independent Broadcasting Authority and others, 2002, volume 4, South African Law Report, at page 294. It's a CC decision. This is what the court had to say in addressing the purpose and the nature of the prohibition of hate speech in light of the constitutional guarantee of freedom of expression. The Constitutional Court noted that the pluralism and broad-mindedness that is central to an open and democratic society can, however, be undermined by speech which seriously threatens democratic pluralism itself. Section 1 of the Constitution declares that South Africa is founded on the values of human dignity, the achievement of equality, and the advancement of human rights and freedoms. Thus, open and democratic societies permit reasonable prescription of activities and expressions that pose a real and substantial threat to such values and to the constitutional order itself. So they do not permit, thus open and democratic, they do not permit such expressions. There is thus recognition of the potential that expression has to impair the exercise and the enjoyment of other important rights, such as the right to dignity. Determining its parameters in any given case is therefore important, particularly where its exercise might intersect with other interests. In other words, the court was saying, because of the values of human dignity, because of the values of equality and freedom, your expression cannot undermine such values. So if you allow any person to say whatever they want, although hateful rather to another group or to another person, such will undermine what? The values in Section 1 of the Constitution. In AfriForum and Another versus Malema, 2010, Volume 5, South African Law Report, at page 235, the Gauteng North Court held as follows. The true yardstick of hate speech is neither the historical significance thereof, nor the context in which the words are uttered, but the effect of the words, objectively considered, upon those directly affected and targeted thereby. The words "shoot the farmer" or "the Boer," as they appear in a popular struggle song, are experienced as a threat by a large number of South Africans, and seen in the light of the definition of hate speech, that is in Section 10 of Pepuda, Act 4 of 2000, it constitutes such speech. So that is what the court said. The words "kill the farmer" or "shoot the farmer" in the popular struggle song that usually a majority of the African populace will sing during protests and whatever. It was said those words, because if they are targeted to a particular group, they bring about what? Hate to that particular group. And as such, they infringe on Section 10 of Pepuda that I outlined earlier. In Straydon versus Chilwane, 2008, Volume 2, South African Law Report, and also in the case of Mangope versus Asmal, 1997, Volume 4, South African Law Report, at page 277, the court held as follows. The view was expressed that if a person is called a baboon, when severely criticized, the purpose is to indicate that he is base and of extremely low intelligence. In this case of Straydon versus Chilwane, the court was saying that if you call someone a baboon, it undermines the integrity of such a person. It has a tendency to infringe on the dignity of such a person. And it also tells that person that you have a low IQ, if I may put it that way. It was also stated that it can be inferred from the use of the word in the circumstances that the person mentioned is of subhuman intelligence and not worthy of being described as a human being. And also, if we take it further, we may say it infringes on the theory of universalism as construed at regional and at international law. So because in the terms of the theory of universalism, we are told that everyone is born equal and everyone has inherent rights by virtue of being a human being. So in this court, the judge was saying, if you call someone a baboon, it means you are saying that person is less than a human being, and that the person is not worthy to be a human being. It follows that the person described as a baboon in those circumstances may rightfully perceive them to be hateful. So you see, if you call someone a baboon, the person will perceive it as hateful. Those words are hateful in terms of Section 10 of Pepuda. And the most important thing from these cases that you can draw attention to is that central to these cases is the fact that hate speech, not only is it discriminatory, but it also violates a person's dignity and self-worth. Hence, hate speech is prohibited in terms of Section 16, subsection 2C of the Constitution. That's all in terms of freedom of expression. You have to know how to define hate speech. You have to know how hate speech is considered in terms of South African law, and how freedom of expression rather is limited in terms of South African law. You limit it in terms of the Constitution, Section 16, subsection 2C, That is an internal limitation, because section 16.1 says everyone has the freedom of expression. But in terms of section 16.2, it lists the internal limitations. You can express yourself, but you cannot cross such and such boundary. And also in terms of section 10 of PEPUDA and section 12 of PEPUDA, your right to express yourself is limited to the extent that it will constitute hateful words, it will incite harm against a particular group, and it promotes what? Hate speech. And also you can link that to your section 36, the law of general application. You can express yourself, but you cannot infringe on someone's dignity, on someone's equality, or someone's self-worth. Thank you very much. I'll continue putting up videos. Hopefully we'll be able to cover the syllabus. Thank you.